Hi, so I'm Elisa. I am a vocalist and producer, generally making liquid drum and bass. I use a program called ABLETON for my vocals. I generally work with other producers, but I do also do the vocals for my own tracks as well. So today I'm going to go through a track that I did recently. Because I am a producer, I do have the advantage that I can send my vocal stems completely done with all the processing that's needed. If I was working with another producer, I could just send them a block stem for them to be more creative with. But today I'm going to show you how I use my own vocals on my own track and how I can get a little bit more creative rather than just placing a vocal as one block in a track. Now, there's lots of different techniques to create movement and feeling and punchiness within a vocal, and genuinely we tend to break the stems down into parts so we can work on each stem individually. So basically, today I'm going to play you a track that I produced recently, and I'm going to then go through and break down how I made the vocal sound so beautiful. So this is a track called Daydreamer that I recently made. So I'm just going to play you the vocal from the start. So I hope you like it. I've been wandering through the streets on my own, singing out loud. Hey, yeah, yeah. I've been sat here drinking, smoking my days away in the cloud. I wish we could drive out the countryside, music playing out loud. Go. That's basically the first 32 bars of my track. So I hope you liked it. So what I'm going to do now is show you how I created all that movement and warmth and vibrancy and filled those gaps between the track and made it just sound all lovely. So this is the first stem that I did. This was my main vocal. So right here, I'm just going to silence the rest of the track so you can just hear the vocal on its own. So what I tend to do is place the main vocal on its own, and then I'll process it. So today we're not really going to go too much into the basic processing, compression, EQing, and tuning, but I'm going to show you a little bit about that later on. So this is the main vocal. So when I recorded this vocal into the microphone, so generally I've got a setup at home with a microphone, normally with a pop shield, pop, 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 because we don't want to hear that pop, pop in the microphone. And we can also use a filtration cone, which is like this. I don't know if you can see it, just to compress the sound within the room and keep the acoustics all nice. So here we go. So this was the main vocal. I've been wandering through the streets on my own, singing out loud. So it's quite dry, and you can hear there's some auto-tune on there. I would like to sort of touch base with tuning vocals. When you are recording and processing vocals, the human ear will pick up on any sort of unnatural tuning, because it has to sound perfect. So obviously you see a live band, you know, it's all live and it's not recorded, so that the human ear hears those vocals differently. So it is important in production to get those vocals just sounding perfect. You can adjust the amount of auto-tune, you know, if you want it to sound a bit more robotic because it suits the style of the track, or if you want to make it softer, you can. Also depends on, you know, how well the vocalist sings into the microphone. So it's no reflection on the talent of the vocalist, but it is all personal preference. So what I've done with this main vocal, it's completely dry, and this stem here will sit at the top. When I say the top of the track, it's going to be slightly louder and slightly more prominent in the mix. So what I've done here is I have used a plugin called Antares. So I'm just going to show you that here. Now this is available, you can purchase this. If you can't afford the whole plugin, it is available monthly. And it's a great tool. It's very quick. So what we've done here is we set the key of the track here and here, and we can adjust the amount of tuning over here. So the retune speed, so this would be less and this would be full. We can also make the voice sound more humanized, so we can adjust this here as well. Okay, so we can put this into the track and it will just tune the vocal to the key of the track that you've made. Now, sometimes it can pick up the odd note. So what I've found, another great plugin is we have here is Melodyne. So I can show you this plugin right here. Now this is a very much more in-depth plugin. It's quite time consuming, and it tends to take a lot more time to go through, but it is great to really fine tune those vocals. So we would play the vocal from here and we would click transfer, and then it would record this vocal into here. And then we could then go in and adjust any notes or the loudness or the tone of the vocal. But like I said, this is quite a lengthy plugin to use, so we'll touch base on that in another tutorial. So this is our main vocal. So I've done a basic EQ. I've also added a glue compressor. So I have just adjusted. I do tend to just use my ears a lot, because genuinely your ears are your best tool. Don't be worried if something doesn't sound right or something sounds better. Just experiment. If you're not used to the technical terms, what I did when I was learning was use my ears. If it sounded nice, I went with it. So that's basically what we did. I do low pass the sometimes the bass out of the vocal just so it sounds a bit flatter. So this is our main vocal. So rolling on to my second vocal, it's basically the same vocal duplicated. So what I have done is I'll show you here. I right click here and we duplicate. So then this then creates the same vocal in a duplicated copy. And then we can then reprocess that same vocal into creating more dynamics into the mix. We could add automation, we can add lots of reverb, we can add some ping pong delay, and we can really fill that vocal up and make it sound really warm. So I'm going to play you the second vocal stem and I'll show you how it sounds. I think I want you through the streets on my own, I sing it out loud. Hey, So as you can hear, it sounds completely different. So what I have done with this vocal is it's got the same tuning on it, but I have just added lots of reverb and delay onto it. I've literally maxed it out to the full, okay? And I've also high passed the reverb, so it gives a kind of like you're on the telephone sort of sound, and it just sits underneath. So it doesn't. So what it does is it complements the main vocal, doesn't overbear it, but it just gives that definition to the vocal. So what I've also done is I've done a third stem. So I'm going to show you this here. It's quite similar to the second stem, but I've chopped it up. So this creates ad-libs underneath the main vocal. And how I've done this, I've gone through the sections of the vocal and the pieces of the vocal that I want to accentuate and really bring out, but just, again, not overbear the main vocal, but just sit underneath and create some movement within the mix. So this vocal here, I'm going to go through with you what I've done. Again, we've duplicated this vocal before I've chopped it up and reprocessed it. So we can always use that first vocal, and it saves time having to go back through and do it 3 times, especially for the vocalist. So what I have done here is I'll play you. So I'm going to play it with the main vocal sitting on top. So we're just going to silence out the rest of the vocal, because I want to play 2 vocals together at the moment. So just bear with me while I do that. So you can hear that's quite dry at the moment. I've been sat here drinking, smoking my days away in the clouds. Can you hear that? Just that extra layer added right underneath. So I've picked out the parts of the vocal, the ad-libs, the oohs, the ahs, and I've just sat that completely underneath. So it just fills the spaces in the track. So it's just continually evolving. So what I will show you now is what I have done. It's quite simple, to be fair. It's not much different to what I've done in the other vocals, although this vocal has been really chopped up. And it's up to the producer to be creative and decide how they want the vocals to sound, where they want it placed within the arrangement of the track. And, you know, it's really up to you how you want to use these vocals, and you can get really creative with it. So here we have in Ableton, and I've used quite simple techniques. You don't need to be fancy. You don't need to, you know, use loads of plugins if you don't have access to them. You can actually use a lot of the built-in audio effects that come with Ableton. Again, we've just EQ'd, and we've added not so much reverb as the second stem. We've just gone sort of halfway, but I've low cut and high cut that reverb so it's not too overbearing. And again, I've just added some compression. Now this is where I love the ping pong delay. Any of my tracks, it's just my favorite tool in Ableton. So I want to show you a bit about automation. Again, I've high passed this vocal to give that sort of flat, you know, took out all the bass, all the low end out of the vocal right here. So this is a low pass filter on the EQ8, and we can just adjust that to how we want it to sound. So I've also added, going back to the ping pong delay, which I love, I've done a ×8 on a delay, and I've also got the delay in stereo, so it will bounce across. So I haven't done any automation on this stem because I'm just going to adjust the feedback here and the amount of dry wetness of the delay. So it just gently echoes 8 times after the vocal finishes. What I've also done with this track is I have used some oohs and ahs, as we call them, some ad-libs, just again to sit gently underneath the track and to give the vocal the flow and evoke some emotion and feeling. Because I think when you're producing music, I feel very strongly that it's got to create some sort of vibe and feeling to the listener. So anything that is based around, you know, oohs and ahs and things like that, it really does create some emotion. So I'm just going to show you what I've done with this. So I've clicked the A button, which brings up what we call an automated bit of processing. And what I've done, again, I've used the same ping pong delay. And that's all I've used on this. So I've chopped up a part of the track where I'm singing, and I've automated it because I don't want it to echo all the way through. I want the vocal to start as it is and the delay to pan off at the end. So as you can see here, we have markers. So like I said, we can press the A button. We can also bring up automation by right-clicking here, and it will say show automation. So there's 2 ways that you can bring that up. We can also zoom in on our stems here. So what I've done with the 4th stem is that I've created some ad-libs. So I've picked out some parts of the vocal where I'm just not saying any words and just singing, just to create that emotion in the track. And again, I've used the ping pong delay that comes standard with Ableton. I do love this tool because it's great for vocals, and you can be very creative. But what we've done this time, instead of the delay going through the whole track, I've automated the delay to sit exactly where I would like the delay to come in and come out. And what this does is it creates, you've got more control, and it creates the movement where you want to place the movement. So again, I have chosen the 8 times delay. I've reduced the feedback to 1/4. And again, I've made it more dry on this one because I'm going to automate it. Now, if you want to see how to automate any sort of delay, you can, on Ableton, you can press the A button. And we can zoom in on our stems right here. As you can see, this red line is my automation that I've placed with the delay. So this is just a simple ad-lib. There's no lyrics or words. It's just, you know, an ooh and an ah, if you like. So what I have done here, we can zoom right in, and these red markers, which again you can take off, but when you want to work on your automation, you can press A. Or what we can also do is in our audio effect, we can right click and we can say show automation. So what I have done here, you can use the draw mode effect on Ableton. We can click draw mode here. Okay. So it means that we can lift this up, and the higher it goes, the more it's going to delay in the mix. So we're going to start the automation to not come straight away, but gradually lift off and then pan out as the vocal ends. And again, we can move along and recreate this again. So it just means that the delay is not too overbearing, and it just sounds lovely. So what I'm now going to do is just show you a little tip as well, that what I do when I'm mixing my vocals. So we have two views in Ableton. I'm just going to take automation mode off. So if we press the tab bar, this is the sequence view, arrangement view, sorry, and this is the sequence view. And I tend to mix my tracks, as you can scroll along here. These are all the stems, and you've got your mixing channel at the bottom. So I'll take where my stems are. So if we just go back into the arrangement view and we start the track from the beginning, and then we can tab back, and then we can just have a look at how all the vocals are sitting in the mix. So this is our main vocal. So I'm going to make sure that all of these buttons here, you can silence, take them out. If you just want to work on an individual stem, you can also, as I did before, you can just play that one stem and silence everything else. So this is our main vocal. So we're going to play the vocals all together. They all come in at different times, so you do have to run through the track and let it play so that you can hear where the vocals are sitting. So as you can see, this is my main vocal and it's sitting a lot louder in the mix. The second stem, I just got that sitting slightly underneath in volume. But what we're always doing is making sure that right here we're not clipping any part of our track, because when we want to send it off for mastering, we want all the levels to be sitting nicely in the mix, so the mastering engineer can bring out every element and every stem. So because these stems here are slightly lower and not as loud, not as clear, I can have the volume slightly higher because I've high passed the main low end of that vocal out, and it just brings it through. So it was slightly clipping in the mix there, so we'll just bring that down ever so slightly. And what we can do is we can just adjust our vocals to our ears until we're happy with how it sounds. So each stem is sounding completely different in the mix, although it all comes from one main block vocal that was originally recorded. As I said before, we've duplicated. So I'm going to play each individual stem or vocal stem of the track in turn so you can hear the difference of how it sounds compared to the other. So we can silence out the rest of the track by pressing this button, and we can then only focus on that one stem and we can hear how it sounds. So this is our main vocal. So it sounds a bit weird because there's quite a lot of processing on that, because I wanted it to sound, you know, quite processed in the track. But because we've got lots of layers, you won't notice that when we piece it all together. So the second stem is here, and again we can silence out and we can just listen to this track. So as you can hear the difference, there's a lot of reverb on there and there's a lot more processing, and it's just sitting slightly quieter. So the third stem is where I have broken up the vocal to accentuate parts of the track as ad-libs. And when we say ad-libs, they're double layered parts of the track that duplicate throughout, whereas they wouldn't be there in other parts. So it just brings out those last little parts of the vocal, or any word that you want to, you know, delay or accentuate. I'm just going to play this part.
In this daydream, I'm in love.
And then in the breakdown, I've added just a simple delay to an ad-lib. I'm going to play that now. These just sit quite softly underneath. And you can place these wherever you like in the track and be really creative with your vocals. Because if a vocalist sends you a vocal stem that they've written, you don't have to use it as they've written. You can actually play about with it, chop it up, put it wherever you like in the track, and kind of make your own song if you want to, or you can use the vocal as it's been written. It's entirely up to you, and that's the joys of being creative in producing. So again, we've got another ad-lib here where I've used some automation, and we're going to silence it here, the rest of the track, so we can focus just on that one part. So there's lots of different layers to this vocal that, you know, to the human ear when you're listening back, you'll be able to pick out slight differences, but it just then works as a whole when we listen to it as a finished track. So again, we've just got some more similar sort of processing. Again, just some delay, and we'll just silence it here and you'll be able to hear it. Going to play it from there. And that's basically our track in all its layers.
Thames Delta, can you do the one for skate? Mr. Fearless, sonic boom blazing, run around down Thames Delta, keep raving. Move your body, rock and roll, going down, diggy down, down.
One of the guardians we educate the audience, beware the music symbol and them demonistic ornaments.
Them never was in the course of a slash. Them shout to me, I go get you what they burn them bash. Whack-a-tin, no you can't run away.
I'm sick of hearing these brass clocks full of chat shit in these blah blah.
From a Thames Delta to make it go.
Give me no checks, well out. They don't wanna give me no checks, well out. Make that.
Gotta get down. Well, watch out, we burn a dick and we work a rod.
Live and direct from the HQ.
Well, we come out of this session of the ram. We born with the revolution.
The microphone too. Right for the rhythm and all my hype up.
Yo, Thames Delta. Here comes the belter. Hackney, Tottenham, Brixton, Stokey.
Pull up that.